Why music? Why does music have that ability to just make people feel welcome?
Well, I think it's experiential, and not a lot of people can trust the truth, or when they can't trust the truth, maybe they can trust their experience and that it moves them, and they can't deny that something about that moved me. And sometimes I can trust that more than I can the pastor that's standing on the platform and he's saying the things, but there's something about music that it moves us, and we were made for that. It's like it speaks to the deepest parts of you. And I think it's just a powerful tool when you take the truth of God's word, who he is, and you put it to melody. And I think it's able to communicate maybe a little bit differently. It's an amazing question that I've actually never heard of before. And it's a beautiful thing to think about that, for me, I don't know. I think a lot of times I can trust it more than what someone just says. But the way it arrested my heart, And
Yeah.
then I think there's a beautiful thing about music that, I've said that what our songs do is carry the message beyond Sunday. And there's a lot about Sunday's messages. If you go to church or maybe you listen to someone online, and for me, I have a very little attention span and ability to remember the things I'm hearing. But when you put it in a melody and you put it to a rhythm, there's something about that I'm able to like meditate on it over and over. And there's a lot of things that like, I don't believe at first, but when it sticks, it's like my mind has time to catch up with it. And my heart has time to catch up with it. And, that's even a practice that I went to Israel a few years ago, and we went to go see the Western Wall. And we asked them why they were rocking and singing these scriptures facing the wall. And our tour guide said that is the way they memorize the scriptures, is actually to a melody and to a rhythm, to a cadence. And I think there's something to that, that maybe the truth, these words are able to penetrate in a different way when they're to a melody, and when they're presented in this way. Not only can they pierce in a different way, but then they also can stick and they can stay with you beyond Sunday. And maybe a lot of us just need some time for our minds and our heart to catch up with this truth instead of trying to just hear it once and receive it,
Yeah. Think about it for a second. I've heard a couple pretty good sermons, and you have as well. But I've never hummed a sermon.
Yeah.
I've never hummed a, like, how did the sermon
Yeah.
go? Mm-hmm. But music, at the parts that you remember, the parts that stick, it's like smelling like the cookies in the oven, or
Yeah.
the smell of burnt toast and bacon. Like that, just like all of a sudden I'm back on the camping trip. I
Yes.
smell that thing and it just pulls me there. And I love that when you release a song, you don't tell people the parts of their emotions or their life experience that it needs to touch. What you're
Yeah.
saying is this is a safe place for the next 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And you can dwell in this really safe place, because I'm not going to shout at you. I'm going to sing to you. And so,
Yeah.
as silly as that sounds, it sounds like just creating a safe place. And we can do that. I mean, I couldn't carry a note in a bucket, but that's why God made Starbucks. You could create a safe place, make sure you
Yeah.
pay for your friend, and then just create a little safe place for 2 minutes and 30 seconds and just say, this is a place where we can just like keep it super real. Tell me the parts that are the felt needs or the things, and let me start first. So I will pick that, I'll set the tempo for vulnerability in this. And
Yeah.
so where a lot of people admire, I'm one of them, great musicians and their ability to take us to beautiful places. Even if you like your instrument of choice was the trombone, don't bring that, or do bring it to Starbucks, but to just say you get to like touch people in the same way with your vulnerability. You get to say, we can talk about the pain points and where those came from, and pray these honest prayers like the dad in Mark 9, like, I believe,
Yeah.
just help my unbelief. Here's the part I'm positive about. I'm positive about the Jesus part. And the part I'm not as sure about just yet, I'm not, God isn't afraid of our questions. It's just like
Yeah.
we get to say, this is the part I'm just there's these people that are really difficult, like me included, as I said, but like to say, what do you do when people within our faith communities are kind of policing one another?
Hmm.
And it has like a wave, like as a San Diego guy, there's a front and back side to the wave. So the front side is us encouraging each other towards good works and all the things that our friends in the scriptures talked about. But at the same time, there's a backside, which seems like the hall monitor of our faith,
Yeah.
that we're like so busy trying to help other people not lose their way that we lose our way.
Yeah.
So how are you doing in the best, most like optimistic version of that? One function is releasing words that are true. What other kinds of things are you doing to just let people know that they're welcome? Because I've listened to your music. I feel invited when I hear it.
Wow. Well, thank you for saying that. Just this thought came to mind as you're talking, that I think as leaders, and we don't maybe even intentionally try to do this, but when we're trying to pastor somebody or lead somebody, shepherd somebody, encourage somebody, I think a lot of times we try to get them to look more like us, when really we just need to get them to look more like Jesus. And I think that's where we maybe get a little bit caught up in the policing and it's when we try to form people, we try to shape people into what we think they should look like, instead of like letting God do the work and like pointing them towards him. And so like, man, I really hope my songs do that, is not like just try to encourage you to like, be more like how I think you should be, or live like how I think you should live. And hopefully it's like, man, it just points you to Jesus, points you to God, how God says you should live and what he wants you to become. Because we can have very different ideas, and that's a beautiful thing for anybody who's like, kind of coming back to what you said a minute ago, just who's been hurt by people like in the church or in ministry or anywhere. I've had some really interesting moments in my walk and being a part of the church for years, and since I was little, and it's really hard to lose trust. But one thing I've just decided to, and I've seen, not just believe, but I've actually seen it, and God, I have testimonies of this, is where I've been hurt by people trying to help me, right? But I think their intention was good, but they're really trying to form me into maybe what they wanted me to be, and not actually what God was doing, what he was saying for my life. And the quicker that I chose to forgive, the quicker I saw God use that opportunity. And, there's that scripture that says, what the enemy meant for evil, God will turn for good. And I think if you can go into one of those situations or look back and you can allow God to turn that for good, I've seen friendships that I've been hurt by, like actually be strengthened through that. And we've actually somehow, by the grace of God, now trust each other even more because we've had the hard conversations, and so I've really watched God do that in my life. And so I just wanted to say that for anyone listening who's been hurt, man, like God can absolutely use that situation, even though it's really, really tough, and bring good from that and teach you something and teach them something when there's vulnerability, there's authenticity, when there's forgiveness. And hopefully I didn't go somewhere different that you didn't want to go, but I just wanted to say that, we're all flawed.
That's exactly what I want to go. And I also want to give some airtime to these beautiful heroes of love that are within the church that just unspoken there. It's easy to identify and sometimes over identify with our woundedness and like where somebody let us down and all that. But I want to lift our eyes and say, think about the people who lifted you up. Like there's a long list of people that faith was important to them, and they just quietly, they're not rocking it in front of a lot of audiences and all that. They're just quietly loving on people and doing the kinds of stuff that Jesus said, man, you stand on a corner and make a big deal about everything, that you got your reward, you got your little golf clap. But I just think of the scores of people that have just quietly demonstrated a lot of patience where I wasn't justified. I hadn't earned it, but they were just patient with me. And I just like quietly being love's heroes. And many of them are in our brick buildings with steeples on them. They're not all there. The guy at the tire store is pretty nice dude too. But to just say, instead of just thinking about like I've got another grievance, like this person let me down and they did that, and then
Yeah.
Southwest was late and all that. It's easy to get distracted by some of that and to say, man, like tell me about the mailman that walked through a foot and a half of water in Dallas last week to get somebody. Granted,
Yep.
it was a phone bill, but they got the mail there. Like I really, really like, I want to make sure that we're given equal time to those things.